Welcome to our annual monthly press conference, and we decided to make property crimes our topic because in the summertime, summertime, fall, when the weather is a little bit better, we usually see an increase in property crimes. We are having this press conference in conjunction with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, and they're represented by Sergeant Brandon Blackman, and he will be speaking, and also Commander Harold Medina from the Albuquerque Police Department. Okay, according to a report from the Department of Justice, burglaries are 10.5% more common in the summer than the winter. Common sense. Warmer weather, kids are out of school, people are out enjoying weather, windows are open, doors are left open, unlocked. Rates of household property victimization, household larceny, and serious violent crimes such as rape and aggravated assault were also significantly higher in summer months. Again, common sense. I know that with the Bernalillo or the Metropolitan Detention Center, they also, because crime is up, see an increase in their population. And we've been working hard to try to control that population. Property crimes include burglary, larceny. Burglary is breaking into a building, a home or a commercial building. Larceny is the taking away of something of value. Theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, shoplifting, and vandalism. It does not involve force or threat of force against the victim, therefore it's not considered a violent crimes. They are high volume crimes with cash, electronics, jewelry, and other hot products. I think throughout history and most of the crime shows on TV focus on violent crimes. And property crimes isn't considered as sexy, but it's a real quality of life issue for people who live in the community. And it's rare to find someone who's committed a violent offense who hasn't also committed some property crimes along the way. And so they're all interrelated and they're extremely important. In selecting juries on voir dire, a common question is, how many of you have been victims of a crime? And almost everybody will raise their hand because they've been a victim of a property offense. So they are serious and important cases. Our Community Crimes Division has 18 attorneys. It's our largest division in the office, but for I believe Metro is ahead. 18 attorneys, 10 staff members. The average caseload is well over 100, and I would joke how much more than that. I mean, we've had caseloads over 200 in the past year.
And I think our average right now is about 140, Letitia.
It's about 140 right now, with the highest being about 200.
Okay. So they're way higher than they should be, but our attorneys are managing those caseloads. It's a division that has one deputy that oversees it and 2 supervising assistant supervisors because of its size. Prosecutes more than half the felonies in our office, which is pretty amazing. Some of the cases that we prosecute, everything from shoplifting, over $500 is a felony offense, to first-degree drug trafficking. They also do the narcotics cases. And they compose roughly half of the crimes we prosecute. The prosecution of property crimes frequently involves the community groups and some retail groups that we work with to impact in a positive way property crimes. We try to keep victims involved in the process. A lot of people will say that a residential burglary they feel is a real violation of their personal privacy. Although the Victims' Bill of Rights does not include property crimes, we still try to go above and beyond in keeping the victims, if they're interested, in the loop where they know, what's happening, what stage their case is in. Keeping the judicial focus on the impact of property crimes is difficult. And part of the reason, things that I've already said, a lot of people think, yeah, property crimes aren't that big, nobody got killed, therefore, it's not that important of a case. But it is an important case, and a lot of people that commit property crimes commit a number of property crimes. And so we try to make the court aware of that and take it seriously. And it's not that's a criticism of the courts, it's just they see so much that it is difficult to get their attention. Many property crime affect, many property crimes affect victims, like I said, of residential burglary in a really personal way. And a lot of people, especially in really tough economic times, you have one TV or you have one of whatever, and it gets stolen, a laptop that you rely on, an iPad, things like that. It can impact the victims emotionally. And a lot of them, especially elderly people who are often victims, don't have the resources to replace items that have been stolen. And a lot of people don't have the insurance either, because, or they have a high deductible. So that's not always a solution. These numbers that we're showing you indicate a really low number for 2014. That's because we're not through the year, and these stats probably, Kayla, are reliable through
May.
May? Okay. So they look low, but they're not really going to be low at the end of the year. And when we look at this on larceny, and that's the taking away and clearing away of something of value, basically, and it includes misdemeanor and felony, we see that over the years, the trend, and we had an increase in 2012, 2013. We don't exactly know what 2014. Letitia and Joe, what do you think, if you had to guess? Do you think our numbers are going to be up?
It looks like it's pretty consistent with last year. I don't know if it's
Okay.
going any higher.
Okay. But last year was a record. And you know, a lot of these things, numbers are only as good as what the data that we input. But oftentimes, people don't get caught. Very oftentimes. We have different kinds of cases come in. We don't have a suspect. And oftentimes, law enforcement has different initiatives that they may be working on something else, and property crime arrests go down a little bit, or the cases that are reported go down a little bit. So just realize that these numbers can be abstract. When we go to burglary, we see that once again, 2012 and 2013 were higher. I would suspect 2014 is going to be pretty much the same, in the same ballpark. So we are seeing an increase. And, oh, that's receiving stolen property. I'm sorry, I have burglary. Okay. Receiving stolen property, and that is oftentimes someone that's just in possession of something that was stolen. We can't prove that they stole it. Someone has a big TV in the back of their pickup, and we can't prove that they stole it, but we know that it was stolen and that they're in possession of it. So that's basically what we see receiving stolen property is. And once again, we have disappeared. But once again, we have the 2012 and 2013 were really high numbers. When we move to shoplifting, we see a pretty steady increase up to 2013. We don't know what we're going to get in 2014 yet. This includes, all of these include misdemeanor and felony shoplifting. Several years ago, and I don't know, was it 2007, 2008, around that time, they moved the dollar amount up. So for it to be a felony, it's got to be over $500. I think previous to that, it was over $250, right? And back in the older days, it used to be anything over $100. But we've been moving that around. At this point, did we not cover? Okay. At this point, I'd like to introduce Commander Harold Medina with the Albuquerque Police Department.
Thank you. I'm going to skip over robbery that falls under our violent crime section. I couldn't agree with the district attorney more with a lot of the statements that were made. When we go to community groups, I always try to start it off with asking the group to raise their hand with who's been the victim of an auto theft, who's been the victim of an auto burglary. And by the time you finish asking the questions, almost nearly every single hand in the audience is up. The citizens of Albuquerque are more likely to be a victim of property crime than any other crime. And when we're looking at the specific property crimes, I couldn't agree more that the priority should be on residential burglaries. And several months ago, when I got transferred back to the property crime section, I spoke that very topic, that residential burglaries were our priority because of the fact that so many victims feel violated and they feel unsafe in their home. And I can say that from firsthand experience because as a young officer, my mother's house was burglarized, and the extent my mother went to protect herself and fathers from that point on changed them for the rest of their life. They now have wrought iron on their house and they're very cautious. Residential burglary-wise, we're doing very well. 2010 was a great year for the Albuquerque Police Department. We had 20-year lows in our property crime rates. And even though over the past few years we've seen single-digit increases, if you look at 2014, we're trending well. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to be very close to the 2010 numbers. And if you look, we're right in that area where we're going to be able to match those record-setting numbers. Residential burglary, like we said, is our priority. We want to make sure that the public feels safe in their home, and we've dedicated a lot of our resources towards residential burglaries. And we've made a lot of progress arresting key burglars in the community. But not only that, we've really put out a program where we're trying to emphasize 3 topics. The enforcement that we need to do and arrest these individuals, the preventive measures that individuals need to take in the community to prevent themselves from becoming victims of residential burglary, and the final topic is educating the community on what they need to be aware of, what they need to be looking for, and how they can assist us in preventing and apprehending these individuals who are residential burglars. If we go to the next slide, larceny, it's remained pretty much stable. I mean, like we said, 2010 was a record year. If you look, our numbers are, once again, we can see they're trending well, and hopefully we're going to be able to match those 2010 numbers. And that's what our ultimate goal is. Larceny, if you look, that includes auto burglary also in UCR numbers. So by seeing these decreases in the past few years, our big car program has really helped lead to the decrease in our auto burglary rates. And actually, 2013 was a record-setting year for the reduction in auto burglaries in the city of Albuquerque. Auto theft, this is one of my concerns. I'll be honest, I look at auto theft numbers and they were up. We knew they were up since the beginning of the year, but we also had a very active investigation that was occurring in concurrence with Homeland Security. When I arrived at property crimes, we were averaging approximately 50 auto thefts a week. Since the operation with Homeland Security and the rest of the cartel members who were involved in the auto theft issue in the city of Albuquerque, we've trended that down to about low 30s. The last 3 weeks we've had auto thefts in the low 30s. So we are seeing progress.
Can I just ask a question? Is our auto theft numbers impacted by our location to the border?
I think that there are 4 topics that really affect our auto theft numbers. One is our proximity to the border, because a lot of times when we have tactical operations, when we look for our vehicles, we set up on the furthest southern parts of the city and the county. And there's several vehicles that we've caught. I know the Sheriff's Department's had successful cases where we catch the vehicles going south to where either they're going to leave the state or they're going to some of the southern communities to be stripped, to be changed and altered to leave the state. So I think that's one of the topics that affects our auto theft rates. I think that the drug market affects our auto theft rates, because a lot of times these cars are not stolen. They're traded for drugs. The individual is unable to recover his car, and he has no other option but to say, my car's been stolen, because he doesn't want to call and say, I lent my car to a drug dealer. That's another topic that affects us. I think that we're also affected with individuals who want to make money because the cars are worth so much more in pieces than as a whole car. So a lot of times these cars are being dismantled and sold as pieces. And the final thing I think that really affects us is the ability of individuals to buy salvaged vehicles, salvaged titles, and then be able to wash that vehicle with the proper VIN number from one of the other cars and switch the VIN. And now they bought a car for $1,500 and they're selling it for a whole lot more because they've switched the VIN and it's now on a stolen car. Burglary and breaking and entering, we're going to go over to the Sheriff's Department. But if you guys have any other questions, just let me know, and thanks for having us here today.
And I believe that we have Sergeant Brandon Blackman, who's going to speak on behalf of the Sheriff's Department.
So as you can see, our stats are pretty similar to APD's in terms of percentage-wise. Obviously, our overall numbers are a lot lower, being that we include the unincorporated areas of the city, the North Valley, South Valley, and the East Mountains, which have far fewer residents than Central Albuquerque. But as you can see, our stats are pretty similar. This year, as far as burglaries go, we're probably on point to be about where we were last year. And again, this also includes breaking and entering when people report that somebody is, they came home, somebody kicked in their door, and nothing is missing. So that kind of bumps our stats up a little bit. It makes it look like people are getting ripped off when sometimes they're actually not. Sometimes people will come out and they'll find that their car has been rummaged through or something like that, which is not a burglary. If they haven't taken anything, it's not a burglary, but it's still, people will call and say they got burglarized. And sometimes our reports will reflect that we have something similar to that. Our larcenies and thefts, again, they were kind of up and they've gone down a little bit. Last year, we've gone down quite a bit. Where we're at this year, if these are from this year till through May, I think we're going to be a lot lower. I think we've started a bait program as well that I'll talk about in a minute. I think people are kind of getting a wind of it, and we're talking to people that are aware of the bait program, good guys and bad guys. So I think it's slowing things down a little bit on the easier thefts that people are taking advantage of victims on. And motor vehicle thefts, we're actually kind of on the rise, I think. Sometimes I think it's like Commander Medina was talking about, it's how close we are to the border. We've, in the last few months, have had several single vehicle thefts that have led us to chop shops where people, like he was saying, they're switching VIN numbers, they're switching plates to then get the entire vehicle out of here and take it to Mexico is one of the first things they'll tell us. Or they're doing, like he said also, is they're salvaging it. They'll take the VIN off completely and strip it and then rebuild it with another VIN number. They'll put different doors on it. They change these vehicles completely. And it's just so easy to do, I think. The chop shops, in conjunction, we've had some dirty tow yards and salvage auctions and stuff like that where they're selling cars that they don't have titles for. So I think it's kind of helping them do their job as car thieves, unfortunately. Sometimes I think it's kind of a balloon effect. I know APD has a really successful auto theft bait program where, and you guys have seen it on TV, where the guy steals the car and they can kill the engine and catch them in progress. So I think sometimes the balloon effect, where people know that APD has these stolen cars, so you put pressure on them in one area and then they just move down to someplace else. They come down to the South Valley and start stealing cars that they know that we probably don't have those down there. So our car thefts are actually up a little bit. The bait program that we started it last August, and I'm not ashamed to say we basically copied APD. I got with Sergeant Gamboa with the Property Crimes Detectives and kind of talked to him about how they were using bait in terms of auto burglaries and tracking devices and stuff like that. And we basically piggybacked their whole program. They were very helpful and instrumental in getting us started, and it was hugely successful. The first 5 months that we did last year, we were averaging 2 or 3 arrests a week in auto burglaries. And I compared that 5-month period to the 5 months the year before, and it was down 32%. So once people, I think, started getting wind of it, our auto burglaries went way, way down by almost a third by comparison. So I think our bait program has been highly successful, and we're going to keep doing it. I was asked about how to avoid becoming a victim, and I get this question a lot. People call me directly and they'll say, hey, I got ripped off. And if they don't have any suspect information, then usually the case doesn't get assigned to a detective. So they'll just tell me, this is what happened, and I don't know what to do. And you'd be surprised how many people still don't follow the old adage of common sense. And I tell people, you left your door unlocked for 5 minutes, and that was all it took. You've got to lock your doors all the time. Lock your doors even when you're home. I've had people call and say, I was in the backyard, I came in, my TV was gone. I was home, I was in the shower, I came out, there was a guy in my living room that just walked in. People, when they're desperate for money, they're on drugs, they don't care if it's broad daylight, they don't care if you're home. They'll run in and run out, and they'll take the chance. So, common sense, lock your doors, lock your windows. Now in the summertime, people have their windows cracked a lot because they have swamp coolers, and they don't put any additional locks on there. They have locks you can put on your window frame where you can only raise the window a couple of inches. So don't think that, well, you have to have your window open, so you're just kind of rolling the dice. Lock your windows, lock your cars. People call me all the time and say, I left my car running and they stole it. What can you do about it? And the car's gone, and they don't have LoJack, they don't have, any information, and they're just kind of dead in the water. You can't leave your keys in your car. You can't leave your car running. They look for opportunistic, chances just to take your stuff. I tell people, and I used to take reports as a deputy many years ago, and very few times did I show up to take a burglary report where somebody had a big dog or somebody had an alarm. Usually they have nothing. You know, they don't have any wrought iron, they don't have even a screen door, they just have regular cheap locks and cheap windows, and that's why they get targeted. Bad guys don't want to deal with dogs. They don't want to deal with house alarms. You know, even though the house alarms are usually false when they go off because they're very sensitive, bad guys don't want to have to deal with that. So protect yourself. You know, you have to get a little bit further into protecting your property. Neighbors are a big deal. I've told people this repeatedly, the in progress calls that we get when people say there's a burglary in progress and deputies respond right now and we catch people, it is almost always because a neighbor saw somebody going in the house. They'll say somebody jumped my neighbor's fence, somebody climbed in my neighbor's window. So you've got to know your neighbors. Your neighbors have to know who belongs in your house and who doesn't. You know, if you're going out of town and you tell your neighbors, if your neighbors know that your kid is a drug addict and he's not welcome there, they'll call the cops. They'll say, hey, my neighbor's son is not welcome there and he just climbed in their back window. That's how we catch people, is nosy neighbors, people that are vigilant, people that are observant, and they call us all the time. You know, sometimes it's just somebody that locked themselves out of the house, but that's okay, we'll take it. A lot of times it's just people watching out for each other. You know, especially in the more rural areas that we have in the East Mountains and the valleys, where you have big pieces of property and you don't have a lot of close proximity to your neighbors. You know, the one or two people that can see your house, they need to talk and communicate with these people. I'll ask people that have gotten ripped off, do you know your neighbors? Have you talked to them if they see anything? And sometimes they're like, no, I've lived here for 10 years and I don't know who they are. And I'll say, go get to know them, knock on the door. You know, bring them a pie. I mean, you know, be friendly and find out. That way you guys can help each other out. Another big thing I've noticed a big increase of in the probably the last couple of years is people that are getting ripped off by people that they let inside their house. So having an alarm, having wrought iron didn't matter because they're getting ripped off by caretakers, repairmen, house cleaners, you know, cable installers, stuff like that, that people will say, yeah, this guy was in my house and I came in and my whole jewelry box was empty. You know, people that are on hospice and have medical care in their house, and then their kids show up and they'll say, well, the only person who's been in here is the nurse, and all my mom's jewelry is gone. And I tell them, you have to watch out for yourself. Again, if you have $20,000 worth of diamond and gold jewelry, don't leave it on your dresser. You know, you can't just leave it there. Somebody is going to take it. And it might be somebody you think you can trust. You know, people get roommates that they don't really know. People are renting out a room on Craigslist or something like that. And a month later, all their stuff is gone. And they know nothing about these people that they let into their house. So I tell them, you've got to protect yourself. You know, if you have a $20,000 ring, you can't leave it laying around. Either keep it on your finger or put it in a safe deposit box. People, I think, are just, they're ignorant as to what can be taken and how quick it can happen. And they think, well, I let this person in. They know that I know who they are, so they wouldn't steal from me. And then I come in later and they say, oh yeah, all my jewelry is gone. I came in and my computer was gone. And it was somebody that I let in. So you have to be careful with people that you let in your house. Don't leave your stuff unsecured. You know, hide it, lock it up, take away the ability they have to rip you off. The reason for all this, the common sense stuff, is crooks are lazy. You know, bad guys will steal what's easy to steal. They don't want to have to climb an 8-foot fence. They don't want to have to deal with your dog. They're going to be in and out as fast as they can. They're opportunistic, so they're going to look for the easy target. They're going to look for the window that's unlocked and the door that has a cheap lock on it, as opposed to the guy that has wrought iron and a dog. So they will go after the easy target. You've got to make yourself better protected. You've got to hide your stuff, lock it up, and make them go someplace else. They may eyeball it and think, oh, okay, I really want that. If they want it bad enough, I guess they'll work for it, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to go someplace else. They'll get somebody else who's lazy and doesn't lock up their stuff and doesn't protect themselves. The keys are in the ignition. That's easier than breaking a window and hot wiring a car. So you have to protect yourself. Make it harder for them to rip you off.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Questions?
So, do y'all have any questions?
Yeah. You want to go up there where the mic is?
Oh,
A lot of people will see this press conference and they'll say, okay, well, the numbers, they kind of bear the same or are pretty similar every year or have been for a while. Where are we with I know arrests are way up because I see a lot of criminal complaints. Where are we with convictions, and where are we with, you know, these people that are repeat property criminals?
Well, I think,
What
I mean,
kind of time do they get
well,
for
they
that
don't,
crime?
they don't get as much, Letitia and Joe might want to talk to that. It's difficult for them to get a lot of time because it costs a lot of money to incarcerate them. And our goal, I mean, is to rehabilitate. So I think that we have drug court, and we have a number of different programs that they can go into, but they're not getting tough time, are they? I mean, can you all speak to that?
It really depends on the person's criminal history, and it depends on the incidents that they're charged for. Frequently, for repeat residential burglars, for repeat